Hello and good morning. Thanks for being here with us and appreciate you sticking through the wait here. I am John Link. I am chemistry product lead for Microsoft Discovery.
And I'm Alexis Mills. I'm a chemist on the Microsoft Quantum team.
So today we're going to talk to you about a number of things. So I mentioned Microsoft Discovery. If you saw the keynote on Monday morning, we announced our new platform for science. We're going to talk more about this later. And I led with chemistry. We're going to talk about other domains today as well, but we're going to start with chemistry. Now, you're going to say, is this a product for chemistry that could be thought of as a narrow field? But in reality, chemistry and material science impacts 96% of all manufactured goods. Everything we use, from beverages to clothing, sporting equipment, paints, coatings, is fundamentally based on chemistry and material science. Materials are so important that we use their names to define eras in human evolution. You talk about the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Silicon Age. That's how crucial materials are to humanity. And it's not just materials and chemistry that impact our day-to-day operations. They've got an impact on sustainability, cleaning water, finding new drugs. These impacts, these changes, they touch 100% of the people on the planet and contribute to many of our sustainability goals. Our mission is to create technology that can solve this class of problems. Like, these are big problems that we believe that the world needs solutions for. And in order to address them, we know that we need to explore molecules, complex structures to deliver new materials. Problem you run into is the number of possible stable molecules may surpass the number of atoms in the observable universe. 1 billion years of classical computing would be insufficient to explore and evaluate all of them. And that is why we're also going to talk about quantum today. It's why the promise of quantum is so appealing and necessary to complete this story. Now, quantum doesn't work in isolation. It's not going to replace all technology and solve all of our problems. We need a purpose-built hybrid cloud compute platform that brings this reliable quantum together with AI and HPC. And we'll be able to leverage the unique strengths and capabilities of each. AI for large-scale data processing and co-reasoning, quantum for complex processing and accurate data generation for AI training, and HPC for automated processing at scale and hybrid algorithms. You know, I tell a lot of people, it's no surprise to all of us that, we've had PCs, and then eventually you had GPUs to offload some of the specific tasks from your CPU, and quantum is going to do the same thing. You will have special tasks, tasks that quantum machines are a great fit for, but you need a hybrid solution in the end. And the other important thing to understand is that quantum isn't just a fix for everything in the universe. As we've spent a lot of time working on our quantum journey, we've come to learn there are specific types of problems that these quantum machines are going to be very good at. And specifically, quantum computers will excel at solving small data problems that have super polynomial quantum speedups. And when we look at what those are, really you run into the world of chemistry and material science. So we know we're going to be able to deliver great impact. And as I mentioned, this all comes together. We're going to talk a little more about quantum first, and I'm going to hand it off to Alexis to cover that side of the story, and then we'll bring that back into the story of Microsoft Discovery and the journey we're taking forward here. So with that, I'll hand over to Alexis.
Thank you. So I'll talk more about quantum and the quantum side of things. I sit in the Microsoft Quantum team, and our objective here is to build a quantum computer. And this is going to be instrumental in addressing some of the world's greatest challenges, as John alluded to. And this is going to help by tackling these intractable computational problems that we face today. So there are a bunch of chemistry systems that we're really interested in, but they're super complicated because these electrons that exist within the system, they talk to each other and they interact with each other and they really influence the behavior, and it's hard to simulate this classically. So we do have classical methods that work for plenty systems, but again, when we have these highly correlated systems and these electrons communicating with each other, they become a little more complex. So today, with the classical methods, for these complex systems, we kind of introduce approximations so we can address these on CPU and GPU resources. But these approximations make the molecule and the properties a little bit blurry, so the quantum computer we suspect and we expect to come in and help clarify this picture of the molecule. So, these systems that I'm talking about, they become complex, one with size, and as a chemist, I think of size of molecules in terms of electrons, the number of electrons, because these are really the tricky guys there. And so size is that, but also, the element type. So when we start looking at transition metals, these become difficult because now we have these d orbitals and these open shells, and so that contributes to the complexity as well. Systems, to kind of make it a little more concrete that we're thinking about, and problems that we want to address here include water purification. So we have these things called metal organic frameworks, for instance, which are kind of cage-like structures, and they become quite large, and they contain metals. But they help with trapping these ions and impurities in water. So if we can design something that's optimal for purification or even carbon capture, then we're well on our way to designing better materials to improve some of these problems. We might also consider looking for new fertilizers to support food security. So these are kind of real world problems that we're thinking about. And as John said, our ultimate goal is to consolidate this all into a single platform. So we want to take advantage of quantum computing for accuracy for these challenging problems, but we also want to take advantage of existing tools with HPC and these workflows that kind of already exist today and can address plenty of problems very sufficiently. And then AI models. These are incredibly useful for their speed. If you're a chemist or a material scientist, some of these packages and these simulations can take a really long time. They can take days, weeks, months even. So if we can expedite this with AI tools, that's kind of what our goal is here. Okay, so on our way to building a quantum computer, we've divided this up into a series of phases. And so I want to dive into each of these phases to kind of talk about what's been done, where we are, and then where we're headed. So in phase 1, this is where we have our physical qubits. This is going to make the very foundational basis of our quantum computer here. So the very first phase of this are the noisy intermediate scale quantum systems, also called NISQ. They're great for proof of concepts, but they're not very stable and they are prone to errors. So we can think of these individual little qubits as kind of spinners, spinning tops, and they're all going and they all have kind of different angles and spins and they kind of die out. And this variability is kind of what gives rise to this error here. So great for proof of concept, not very reliable or not very good at simulating problems. So phase 2, we build upon this and we introduce logical qubits. So we can think of logical qubits as kind of these ensembles of qubits. So now we have groups of qubits working together, and this is going to help address some of that error. So it incorporates this error correction here. And at this point, we actually start to demonstrate quantum advantage for low-depth early problems. So what that means is, for some of these smaller systems that don't require a whole lot of manipulations or operations, we can look at these here. But it's not terribly useful for these big problems that we're interested in, like molecular organic frameworks, because they're just too large. So here we're good with proof of concepts, small examples, but this is not enough. We want to scale this up to larger systems and create larger machines. So for the next phase, phase 3, this is where we're looking at logical qubits. Large quantum machines with many logical qubits. So scaling beyond 1,000 logical qubits here. At this point, we can start considering academic quantum advantage. So we can start looking at more interesting systems at the academic level, understand them, and really go deeper into the properties and improve the accuracy here. But for industrial quantum advantage, we're going to need to think of things much larger. So we're going to need like 1 million qubits before we can get to industrial quantum advantage. So in level 3, in addition to scaling up, of course, we're building on the previous levels. So we are maintaining the importance of the quantum error correction here, rather. So of course, the goal is to increase this. And as we're working to this goal, we've actually designed a topological qubit. And so here, what we've done is we've created the world's first topoconductor, which is a revolutionary new class of materials that we believe can reduce that timeline to a quantum computer from decades to just a matter of years. So what is a topoconductor? Topoconductor is short for topological superconductor, and it's a special category of materials. It's not a solid and not a gas, it's not a liquid, it's a topological phase. So this has been theorized for years, for decades really, but it hasn't been shown experimentally until very recently. And as we've discovered this is actually the foundation and the basis of what is Majorana 1, which is visualized here. So this is the first quantum chip powered by a topological core. It's featuring the world's first topological qubit. And so what's significant about this topological qubit? Well, they're smaller than standard qubits, they're much faster, and they're also more stable. And so by just size alone, this is 1/100th of a millimeter, so it takes a very small amount of space. They're also reliable by design as a result of the hardware-based error resistance. Additionally, for the first time, these qubits are controlled and measured digitally, which is something that is not possible with the other qubit architectures. If you're interested, there is a Nature paper. You are invited to read more about this topological qubit there. So these devices demonstrate a few remarkable advantages that will really help with quantum computing. And so this convergence of quantum and digital technology combined with topological qubits, inherent reliability, is going to enable the path to actually building 1 million qubits on a single chip, which is a prerequisite for meaningful applications. So this is what we're going towards. And this will really allow us to start tackling those intractable problems that are either really computationally challenging or just impossible today. Okay, now I'm going to talk about a timeline to show just how rapidly things are changing. So just last year, in April, we started with 4 logical qubits. Now remember, logical qubits are kind of these clusters of qubits. And here, we were able to demonstrate how reliable these logical qubits can be by showcasing the progress over NISQ devices and significantly decreasing that error rate. So this is great and all, but again, it's very small. So we want to up this, we want to upscale this. And in a matter of months, we were able to triple this. So we went from 4 to 12 logical qubits in a very short period of time. Now it is a small system, but we can do some interesting things here to demonstrate the power and the impact that this will have. So this is a small proof of concept that we did that demonstrated an end-to-end chemical example. So we started with HPC workflows. We identified a system of interest. If you're familiar with CAS methods, you have this active space. And what this active space is, the number of orbitals you're interested in the molecule, and the number of electrons that you're allowing to participate in this calculation. So HPC identified the space for us, and then the qubit optimized this for us. And then once we got this optimized space and representation, we went to AI to inference some of the properties. So here we showed how these 3 tools can work together to solve a problem of a chemical system. We tried this on a physical qubit, and we tried it on a logical qubit to show this error correction is important. This gets us within chemical accuracy and the logical qubit compared to the physical qubit. So this is really exciting, and this kind of supports, the work forward and how this is going to influence future discoveries. Now this is a small system, and this is validated classically. This system can be addressed classically, which is kind of how we've shown the improvement here. Okay, and then as of November, we doubled the number of logical qubits that we had accessible to us. So this went up from 12 to 24. So this is kind of where we're at right now. And of course, our goal is to scale this even further. And actually, by the end of 2025, we've promised a machine with 50 logical qubits. So we plan to double this by the end of the year. But again, we need 1 million, so we're working our way up there. And by devising and fabricating devices like the Majorana 1, we're setting ourselves up to put 1 million qubits on a single chip. So we're well on our way. Okay, so that's the quantum computer. This is kind of the technology, where we're at, where we're headed, and how are we going to use this practically? So I kind of talked about it with the end-to-end example. So while getting to scale is important, we need to really understand how the quantum machine is going to help us. So we already know that we're going to integrate this into workflows with HPC and AI in a hybrid type platform to unlock meaningful solutions here. So things that we're considering, simulating interactions of atoms. We already use HPC and AI to do this, to speed up these simulations. So HPC being, density functional theory for simulating molecules, molecular dynamics to understand how these molecules interact over time in different environments. And then AI, of course, we're going to take advantage of for the speed. So again, these simulations traditionally take a very long time, so taking all these tools together is going to help expedite this. So some of the properties that we are interested in terms of molecules, beyond energies, which we demonstrated a slide ago or so, we're also interested in some of the other properties of molecules, like spectroscopy. So this gives us insight into how the molecule behaves when you excite it with light, or if you add some sort of fields to it, a magnetic type field. So there are a lot of things that we can gain from these simulations. And if we can get more accurate simulations, this is incredibly powerful for development. And if we can get more accurate simulations, we can improve our AI models as well, because now we have more accurate data to use for training. So this is kind of how we're thinking of creating these workflows and how quantum is going to come in. It's really going to help with improving accuracy of our models to expedite these simulations. So just kind of in an animation to visualize this whole process. We have HPC, which we use today to generate plenty of molecular properties. We use this data as it is to train AI models. But you'll notice the molecule is a little pixelated because, again, we have approximations that we incorporate into these simulations to help make them manageable on classical compute resources. And so as a consequence, of course, your AI model is only as good as the data you train it on. So the output here is a little blurry. But if we can take advantage of quantum to clarify this picture, improve the resolution, then we get much better data that we can start to use for AI models. And so the output of our AI models will be better. And so this is kind of how we're thinking about this hybrid workflow and how we're going to improve, molecular properties and simulations and this kind of thing. So thank you, and I will give it back to John to continue with the platform.
No, that was great, and I think really shows you from the rationale to why we got into what we're doing, the promise of the work and where it's going, and how we're really going to use it, how quantum is really going to first impact the work you do. But I'm cognizant that we have a developer audience, and I want to get this to the point of, okay, how are we going to start using this? Where does it show up in your lives? And we talked in the keynote with Satya about the promise of science as a domain where we can go tackle this next big set of impactful challenges. And for us, as we've been on this journey, we think of how we can take a holistic approach to apply AI and all of these great advances we're seeing in the technology in the world across the entire scientific reasoning loop, meeting scientists where they are. Now, this is one that many of us learned back in middle school. You learn the scientific method and this iteration and how it works. And we've been looking at how we can apply all of the best of today's technologies to every part of that cycle. And just as generative AI has unleashed new waves of creativity and improved productivity with collaborative tools like Copilot, we're bringing AI and natural language methods to all of the stages you see here. And so we know there's this massive opportunity. And myself as a product guy, I want to talk to folks in industry and understand, what are the challenges that they're facing to adopt these new emerging technologies, to shift, to take that digital transformation leap. And universally, almost every large R&D leader that I spoke with, highlighted the same set of concerns. You have a lot of these bespoke point solutions. They're highly specialized. They don't integrate well with each other. They can be clunky to work with to move data from one to another. The other big thing, obviously, we see this as Microsoft, that, yeah, there's a lot of innovation out in the world, but is it something that I can safely bring into my production environment? If I'm working in a regulated medical device industry, how do I think about the regulatory guidelines that, control my work? So as we looked at those challenges and we looked at the opportunity, we said, okay, hey, we think there's something interesting here. And that's why we here at Microsoft are building this end-to-end platform for science to help R&D teams leverage the benefits of emerging technologies to drive real business impact. And this means creating a platform that can integrate different solutions to enable scientists across every stage of that discovery process, making it easy to leverage the right tool for the right problem so that scientists can focus on science and not IT, and ensuring that governance, control, security that are all required are there so that they can innovate responsibly. And that comes back to what we announced, Microsoft Discovery. And so this product we have is coming to private preview at the end of June. So we'll be working with a select set of partners. If you go to the blog where we announced, there is a link in there where folks can sign up for interest. And we're working with folks to really help ensure that the product we've built solves the problems that are facing them today. We know there's a lot of possibility in this space, and we'll show you how it works through a couple of steps here. We're going to take a deeper dive than we talked about in the keynote a little. And we just want to start from understanding that what we've done here is build on the best of technology that Microsoft has to offer today. We're not reinventing the wheel where we don't need to. We have amazing capabilities in that core Azure infrastructure, in the Azure OpenAI services, in AI Foundry. All of the existing scale of HPC, obviously quantum as it comes to life here, data connectors in Fabric, in Azure Purview solutions. When we bring those together, though, it's not just a matter of integrating. Like there was definitely something that was missing to make a real science platform, and that's where our team has focused in kind of bringing this all together. And having that Copilot as a front end that really is a custom Copilot for scientists that can think like a scientist, that can run the scientific method. We use graph-based reasoning, and we'll get a little more into this, over all of the data, not just for better insights and more accurate answers out of the data, but actually to drive the planning and execution of that process and orchestrate those agents. And more than anything, understanding that science has got to be an ecosystem play here. We are building a platform by design, something that we want to be extensible so that you can bring your own tools and models. You can work with system integrators. You can have a vibrant marketplace of tools, models, agents that just help extend it for whatever your need. And that extension is really, what drives this. We talk about different domains. I said I lead with chemistry. That's where we started this journey. A lot of this project is the evolution of many great years of work across Microsoft. We had a preview product called Elements. We've had work with our partners in Microsoft Research are doing amazing things with customer projects, with models, with research they've done. We've got folks in the health and life sciences team. As we all saw the opportunity across Microsoft, we came together to say, what's the right platform play? And this is what we've built. And the most exciting thing for me as a product builder was I didn't need to build a chemistry product and a drug development product, a silicon product, a weather predicting product. All of our needs were being met by this product that we were designing together. And that really is the key to that extensibility, that really there's a core platform that enables the capabilities that take advantage of this agentic AI shift. And then by bringing the specific tools and models into an extensible catalog, you can support whatever domain is most relevant to you. And so double clicking on some of the more important features there. The specialized scientific agents. This is really, we talk about this. Think of imagining if you're a scientist, having your own team of postdocs that could work alongside you. We're not looking to take the scientist out of the equation here. It's about amplifying the possibility, the productivity of every one of these scientists. These AI agents can learn and adapt over time to explore different areas of research alongside you with different capabilities. They'll be empowering the scientist to find solutions faster. They can define, optimize, and execute full research plans in iterative and collaborative loops. Again, the scientist is always in the loop here. I mentioned the discovery agent. Like, this is really the foundation of our data layer and knowledge management. And by using these graph-based techniques, we have this network of agents that then take this information, that we combine information from both public sources and your trusted internal research. We think of it as having your own science bookshelf. You can bring all of the data that is most important to you, and when you bring that into the platform, you tag these things as these are important, and I would like then to have the graph reason over them. They index this, and then you have not only a collection of data that, in traditional RAG approaches, you would say these are trusted sources that are interesting to me, but you also have this knowledge graph. And that then gives us the ability to really, the agents can see the forest for the trees. Traditional LLMs can struggle making connections, connecting the dots across large data sets and even singular large documents. And the ability then to provide not only accurate answers that are grounded with citations that you can really verify and trace the provenance of all of the answers that these agents are providing you, but also then have those insights, those aha moments where you see in scientific data, it's not just the breadth, it is sometimes the conflict. People don't agree. There are different studies, different approaches. And you'll have these also, you may have a study that, this drug works on this factor. But there's another paper over here of this factor was seen in this population. And then, hey, there's an explosion in this behavior in this population. A traditional vector-based approach isn't going to get you to some of the aha moments of, wait a minute, you might really have promised taking this class of drugs to treat these people over here. And with these graph-based approaches, we've seen just amazing results in getting to the better answers faster. I spent a bit of time talking about that extensibility, but really just integrating the capabilities for your needs we've found is really key. Like, we think there's amazing value in having a enterprise hardened platform here, but the real magic happens and the discoveries for your individual solutions happen when you can specialize it for your domain. I think of it as every one of the agents that you add, when you onboard a tool or a model to the platform, by default, you're creating an agent along with it. And the agent understands what that tool is and how you want to work with it. You can explain the capabilities. It can be as quick and simple of saying, we've got very simple agents that will read the whole API documentation set and say, tell the agent that these are the things it can do. But if you're a specialized scientist, you work in a large organization and you've got one of these complicated packages like Alexis mentioned, AutoCAS. These quantum chemists will use to understand the active space of a molecule. Myself, gets over my head very quickly. But I know I've got trusted scientists on my team who will say, hey, when this type of problem comes up, I want to take these 3 steps, use these 3 functions out of this package, and that's how I get this input into the problem you're solving. You basically take that information and you can harden it into an agent. So whenever you come up and say, hey, now I've got a problem where I know I need to understand the active space, I've got an agent that knows how to call that package, knows how to do the right things, and then pass it on to the next step. So this ability to then have just this fleet of agents who the more you add to the system, the more tools, the more models, the more capabilities, you'll bring things in from the marketplace that others have developed, take advantage of either open source or commercial offerings there. You're just slowly growing that kind of team of agents you have, the team of postdocs helping you work on your problems. And then finally, again, enterprise grade. Like, this has got to be, it's, baseline priority for us. Like, we expect that these are things that people are going to take into real world production workflows, and we want to deliver on that Microsoft promise. So hopefully a lot of you saw this live at the keynote on Monday when we did this. We got a great intro from Satya. If you haven't seen it, it's up on YouTube. I encourage you to check it out. We did this live. This is real code. This is the product that is coming, as I said, in private preview here at the end of June. I was operating without a net with real live agents, so let me tell you, my blood pressure went way down as soon as I got off that stage, and it all worked. Today I'm going to talk through it a little slower here, just through the slides to explain what you're seeing. And the basic concept you have here is, this shouldn't be surprising. We think of these Copilot as the front-end user interface for a lot of what we do today. The world of science today is a lot of these packages that folks use are very complex. In the end, you're always going to go back and be able to use them, but what we want to do is be able to, over time, democratize this space. If you are a large R&D corporation, you don't want to have to depend on the 10, 15 deep computational chemists to be the ones working on your most critical problems. You would love to democratize it so that the rest of your broad scientific staff can take advantage of some of the same tools and capabilities. And we really look at the Copilot as being part of that, unlocking that suite of agents that'll work alongside you, helping understand the capabilities and take advantage of them more easily. We described the problem that we went into, that we solved here. We said, hey, for us as Microsoft, we always want to show that these products are really going to do what they're set out to. And you may have seen a year ago, we talked about a project we did with PNNL on delivering a new battery electrolyte material that used 70% less lithium. That was the first part of this journey for us of understanding how these HPC and AI could work together to solve these real scientific problems. When we were then kind of working towards this next iteration of doing more and more of how the world of copilots and the agentic web all tie together to solve these problems, we picked data center cooling. Obviously, we know a bit about data centers here at Microsoft, and we said, let's go ahead and tackle something in this domain that we think would really provide impact to the world, knowing that these solutions today, these coolants for immersion cooling often have these PFAS or forever chemicals, which are not great for the environment. So if we wanted to get rid of them, how would we go about that? And that was the challenge statement we gave ourselves. So we asked about identifying novel immersion coolants that are not harmful for the environment. And what we do here when we send off this request to go search is we are specifically looking at this, I described the scientific bookshelf and the knowledge graph. So this agent is then going off and using all of the best approaches and models that we know today to act as a deep scientific researcher and assistant to you, the scientist. And it uses that knowledge graph, as I said, to bring together all of the data. We went and, acting as real scientists, compiled all of the best data that we trusted out there. What are the material safety data sheets on existing coolants? What is all the information we got from our own internal data center team on what they look for and their requirements? What are all the most applicable scientific journals that we could go get online and say, hey, this is a great set of information. We want to add this to our bookshelf as trusted information on top of the general things that the agents could find out on the greater web. And by using that, we got what we show here. There's a quick summary on the left, really just in conversation here with the Copilot. But the important thing is on the right, we have this deep research report. It's a comprehensive report. It's got those citations throughout that you can go and follow and check. And this is the one that we then took this and passed this to folks like Alexis and her teammates to say, hey, check this. I'm a product guy here. I want to make sure that this is actually good science. Even before knowing that I was going to show it up on stage in front of all of those people, we wanted to make sure we were on the right approach. And indeed, we were getting great results there. So you get this. And always remembering that, we show one quick run through this cycle here. This is all an iterative process, just like science. I never expect that you're going to get this all right the first time. You're going to get a lot of great information, but you need to be able to iterate. So these agents, you can work with them. Like in the front, you've got a knowledge agent who's doing a lot of this research alongside you. When you say, this doesn't quite hit the mark, for example, if I pick on the boiling point, you say, yeah, this is great. Everybody's got a range of, 40 to 60 here. I want something 25 to 60 C. You may actually have very specific needs yourself and say, hey, I'm looking at very high boiling point methods. And if you want to do that, you say, hey, go tell me what else is out there in the world. What have people learned? What experiments has my company done? Is there relevant data here? And you can continue that iteration and either working towards having a great report that is a baseline to move you forward, or developing your own hypothesis that you may have that aha moment that moves you ahead yourself. In this case, what we showed was we actually asked to say, hey, okay, this is interesting. I asked for a plan based on the properties that I identified in that report. I said I had a specific boiling point range, dielectric constant, a number of other factors there, and I said it needed to be PFAS free. And I just took those requirements and told the agents to go ahead and come up with a plan for me. And what it returned here is this plan to identify non-PFAS coolants. And this plan was built based on the agents, the tools, and models that I had loaded into our system. So knowing the domain and what I would need to do, I had a pretty good idea with my team of chemists that, hey, we're going to need to understand a lot of these property predictions in small molecules. We've got tools for that. We have this mole predictor model. So we're going to onboard that. We're going to teach the Copilot that it's got that as an option. We know we're going to need to use a lot of these traditional HPC methods to validate the findings. So We've got an accelerated DFT service for this density functional theory calculations. We need a molecular dynamics package. We also knew that coming into this, we would want to generate a lot of unique novel input candidates. So we took some of the models that we had brought over from Microsoft Research for generative chemistry, things like TamGen, AutoGen, different things there. And we loaded them in as models. So we loaded up all of these different tools, and then we asked our agents, hey, give me a plan. And very quickly, this is the plan it returned. And as I highlighted, the important thing is myself, as the one writing that plan, I didn't specify the methods. I didn't say, please use DFT to validate the findings. I didn't write code, listing out all of the properties, the functions, and everything. I just said, give me a plan. And this is the plan it returned. Now, the important thing is, again, I keep saying, the scientist is always in control. You can go modify this plan. If you don't like it, you think it's a lousy approach, you can add different steps. You can modify the criteria. You'll be able to click into here, and in under each of these, you can get to the Python code that it generated that says, okay, here's all the actual calls, here's the tools, here's the models I'm using. You can directly edit that, or you can iterate with the agents to go back and take a different approach. In this case, this is a great one. I mentioned the battery project, and it's very cool because the battery and coolant are very similar, and I like to think of funnels of how we solve these scientific problems. And we start by getting to a lot of interesting candidates. With the battery, we took this approach of taking all of these structures and inserting different elements to create this data set that was over 32 million candidates that we were just going to brute force run over all of these. We took a little different approach on the coolant, and it's really the only difference in these two funnels, as I think of them, is for the coolant project, we used these generative chemistry toolkits. With generative chemistry, we're not specifically, we're not taking a brute force approach. We're not using a known data set. We're giving it some starting criteria and saying that, like, hey, I know I like models like this. I know there's specific properties I'm looking for. Please give me a large set of inputs that are more likely to meet my output criteria or look something like this. But you're not constrained by the data you have today or what has been seen. You can get novel molecules that no one has ever seen before as inputs, and you avoid that streetlight effect that folks talk about where you're not only looking in the places people have looked before, the areas that are illuminated by known research, you can look everywhere. And so when we get that generated data set then, okay, we've got piles of data. What do you need to do? You need to narrow that down quickly. The problem with traditional R&D that we have today is it's known science, it's worked for many, many years, but it is slow. It takes time. That's long, arduous trial and error. So to get things down as quickly as we can, we bring AI to the table. And that's where these AI models for property prediction, in both these cases, be it battery or coolant, we use AI models to very quickly screen down that huge set of input molecules. So we've screened those down, but as we know, and Alexis showed in her diagrams, AI is great. It gets you close, but it is not precise. You are making approximations. So what do? We turn to the trusted physics-based approaches that folks use on HPC today. These are huge computations across the scale of Azure. They take a lot of time, but once you've narrowed that set of 32 million down to a couple thousand, a couple hundred things of interest, then you say, hey, now's the time. I'm going to go spend a week or two running these heavy-duty computations to validate how good that AI really was. Did I get a good one? And you can get it down to that set of, okay, now I've got 150 that are actually really interesting for me. And then this is the point where then, you turn to your scientific intuition. And again, this is why the scientist is never out of the loop. You need them to be there. And you get this set that's narrowed down and say, okay, now what do I see? When I've done this execution, I've got this plan, and I liked it. I went ahead and ran it. As you can see, again, generative chemistry, a couple of different AI models, a couple of physics-based approaches. When we get to the end, and all of the agents, you can see there, by the way, working together in real time, driving that compute. That's the view of all of the different agents handing off steps of this process to each other. You get to this output, and the Copilot tells you, hey, I came up with a list of candidates. You can see all of the output files along the way. You've got all of that data. This is all, as I said, you've got not only the logs from Copilot, so you can see why it did what it was thinking, how it was helping you, why it made specific approaches, but then all of the different output data, the different steps along the way. So if you want to go back and change things, you're not throwing out any one of the individual steps. And then you're able to either within the platform, we'll have some basic analysis tools and visualizations. We expect that there's going to be a rich ecosystem, just like folks have with Jupyter Notebooks and other approaches today, of all their own favored tools, visualizers, things like that. Again, extensible by design, but this is the point where the scientist comes in and applies their intuition and says, okay, I'm gonna look at what came out of here, I'm gonna look at those properties, I'm gonna learn some interesting things. On the battery project, it was our friends, the experts at PNNL, who would go in and say, out of this set you gave me, I see something really interesting in this class of candidates. Let's go explore those further. And that's when this really transitions from the digital back to the traditional lab, but rapidly accelerating the process. And the coolant was the same thing. This was the big punchline of our presentation was, this is not just a demo. This is not me showing you how these agents work. We really did this. We took Alexis and her team, who are real chemists. We said, okay, we got a set of outputs. And by the way, I didn't show you the one we used on screen. We took those and we took one of them and we said, okay, we're gonna find one that looks novel. We wanna prove that this tool actually did something, that these agents helped us. They did something real. We're gonna take that molecule, one that looked like it had a good path to synthesis. You could make this. We weren't gonna try, and this wasn't for us a real science process of having to prove, every one of them worked. We just wanted to make sure we could get to an outcome. But we took that then to a partner, and let's see, I think my next slide we show. Yeah, so this is the little video of the output at the end, like after we said it is real. We took it to a partner who then made a number of liters of this material that you can see the immersion coolant there in the tank. And we took just a regular gaming PC. This is not specific hardware. We didn't build a special thing custom for this coolant. Standard PC that we dropped into the tank. And you can see this PC is working. It's running just fine in there, and to stress test it, we took one of my favorite games and said, okay, something that I know will stress the thermal capacity of this chip is we're going to run Forza Motorsport, and so we get to play that in the lab for a while and get that thing running, and all the while we're tracking the temperature readout on all the key points on that board and saying that, hey, this thing actually maintained the stability without the use of fans, all on its own, and it was literally very cool. So we loved this because, we'd spent, honestly, it's been a couple of years on this overall scientific journey of validating the approaches and where we've been going and everything we've been doing. And this was a real outcome for us. This was that scientific process, like once we had the basic workflow stood up, less than 10 days. 200 some hours of compute execution. So I showed in 4 minutes in the keynote, I skipped over those real computation steps. But the reality is that same workflow runs a little over 200 hours. And we got a real set of candidates out of that. When we picked the one candidate that we said we wanted to take forward, less than 4 months, we were able to synthesize it, showing that AI-driven R&D can really accelerate your innovation and lead to real outcomes. This is moving from the world of months or years of trial and error into this kind of timeline. And it's not just us. So I mentioned we're in private preview. Coming up here at the end of June. We've been working, on this whole scientific journey with a number of partners across domains. And this is why, I feel it's important to call out, this isn't just chemistry. We've led with that as our starting point. But again, we've had partnerships in the bio and life sciences space across Microsoft for years. A lot of great partners already in that space, folks like GSK you see up top there. In the silicon and physics domain, you've likely seen announcements here from Synopsys and PhysicsS this week, who've been partners with us as well. And it goes beyond those domain solutions and the folks who really wanted to help drive their digital transformation. It's the partnerships here you see as well. When I think of ISVs and SIs, folks like Noble AI, Booz Allen, NVIDIA, all driving unique solutions to the platform. And the folks at McKinsey, Accenture, EY, all these others who also can help customers unlock that value and take advantage of these tools. Like for us, again, I keep coming back to it because I love it. The ecosystem is going to be huge here. And this is, I think, again, cognizant of being a developer audience here in this room, the power of what we've got is that we've given the capabilities to have an enterprise-grade hardened platform that can take advantage of democratizing the complex set of tools that can unlock the ability to bring a whole fleet of agents to this unique set of scientific problems. And the way we really tackle the discoveries is by then adding on to that ecosystem, bringing the models, the tools, the capabilities for everyone's unique problem. And for us, when we work with these early customers, I think of it as building the bill of materials to address their use case. We have a whole set of, kind of what I would say ideal use cases that we've seen with early customers that we know the right set of tools and models. But in every conversation, you'll have with folks that you're working with, it's understanding, hey, what do you need to be able to do? And then it's looking across whether it's the marketplace for solutions that people have brought in, or it's an opportunity to help develop and bring solutions of your own and fill those gaps. And again, then you're just adding to that, the smarts at the center of the scientific co-pilot when you do that. Now, next steps on the quantum side, there's a good link you can follow here. We talk about being quantum ready. We told you why we're on this journey and what's coming. So whether you're working with clients at a company who want to understand the business impact of quantum, how do I get through the hype in the world and understand really what's going to do? What does that mean to your business strategy? Or it's about getting to a real roadmap of how you're actually going to use quantum. It's not just understanding what it means for society in general. It means for your business. I think Alexis showed you today, we see a real world, and again, this is in the years, not decades point, where we will have quantum data that creates better AI models. Think of it as basically we're teaching quantum mechanics to the AI model. And those models will be part of this platform. So I mentioned in the keynote when we say those set of agents that I showed you that we're off and running, creating all of those different steps of the workflow, as soon as these quantum capabilities come to life in Azure, across Microsoft, you're going to see the agents be able to take advantage of them as well. That will just be naturally part of one of the next set of capabilities that is unlocked. So that's quantum. And then as I mentioned, discovery, if you want this graph-based scientific co-reasoning, having the specialized discovery agents and the extensible platform, private preview here. The link is there where you can see the deeper blog announcement, some great write-up there on everything we've done and a little more from some of our partners with their testimonies, which are great, showing how it can help solve your problems. And with that was everything I had prepared for today. I hope it answered a lot of your questions, but we do have a microphone in the room and time to talk. And Alexis, I can invite you back up as well. If anyone has questions they'd like to ask about anything we discussed here today.
So this is fascinating, and looking at this from a science-first perspective. I'm from the insurance industry.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for some potential thoughts around business use cases around, risk management or just anything creative that you've been thinking about.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I really love that we ended up calling this Microsoft Discovery. And part of, honestly, our thinking there was we think it applies to discovery in the broad sense of the world. We very much focus on those three verticals where we started: chemistry, material science, bio-life science, and physics, because we had existing engagements and we wanted to prove out. Like I said, for me, it's about getting to real product truth and showing you can get to real outcomes. So we needed to focus ourselves. But we've asked the same kind of challenge questions. When I talk about that knowledge graph, we've had folks internally who said, hey, I want to ask some actually, financial analysis type questions. I'm going to take all of the annual reports of some of these companies, bring them in, and all of their official SEC filings, and then start probing on questions and ask it to come up with some hypotheticals. And it actually did a very impressive job of it. So we think that indeed it will apply. Another thing I saw actually today, I believe Peter Lee from Microsoft Research had another post about Microsoft Aurora, which is their weather prediction and understanding model, a very large model that they've been working on for a long time that can not just predict weather patterns, but also generate some unique observations about climate behavior. There is nothing stopping us from onboarding that model. Again, I mentioned when we build on the best of Microsoft, when we think about that approach to bringing in models, we build off of AI Foundry. So all of the capabilities they have there to bring in a model to fine tune it, and that is stuff that's available for us. We make the model discoverable to our platform, and those things can either be public for the entire world to be able to take advantage of, or you can keep your own private set just available for you. So yeah, short, long answer to say I think it will be extensible to other domains. Yeah.
I have two questions. One is that you showed the picture that it takes about 40, 50 physical qubits to make one logical. Is that right?
So this is going to vary on the logical qubit type, but yes, there will be tens of physical qubits that make up a single logical qubit. There are some instances where you can get fewer physical qubits, but yes,
Is it because you take statistical approach to figure out what's the true state?
Yep, and this is kind of how this error correction comes into place because you have the statistical approach, yes.
And when do you expect the million qubits become reality?
It's a very ambitious goal, and it's a very good question, but I think we're well on our way. So I don't think we have this decade's timeline anymore. I think it's a matter of years, so it is on the horizon for sure.
My name's Clayton Lemons. So first of all, this was the most impactful presentation to me so far, especially the demo in the keynote. I loved how we were able to replicate the scientific process. But what's really interesting to me, and really I'm more going to share some thoughts and then hopefully get some comments back from you, is that everything you described, except for the intuition, the inspiration from the scientist part, were words, right? And when we think about LLMs and models, they really are just operating off of tokens, right? The context that you pass in results in some predicted output. If we were to take and analyze what you just told us and turn it into instructions and guidance, what's stopping us from building another agent that simply directs the agents you already have? Or even better, an agent that builds other agents and creates the set of agents that you want. And so what that really looks like is there's still a human in the loop. At some point, the human's going to have to bring in the intuition and say, yeah, I like what you guys are doing, good job, but we need to go this direction or that direction. And we could essentially take everything you just said and bring it to the next level.
Yep, no, all great observations. And so when you talk about an agent to build other agents, we call that agents for agents. And yeah, so I mentioned onboarding these tools. So across chemistry in particular, a lot of the main packages that everyone uses are actually open source. These come out of the academic world. And it is really like these are the workhorses that drive these computations. It's not like you've chosen it because it just happens to be free. It is the industry standard. Those have hundreds of like large API surfaces. So when you go to say, I said, when I bring in a package, I bring in a model, I by default create an agent. And that process, while simple, it still takes time to go do all that. So obviously folks within our team said, hey, I bet we could write an agent for that. And we've done exactly that. So automating that process of like, I'm going to create that agent. And then, it doesn't get everything right. And those levels of intuition that I say, I know the chemist on my team tells me, here's how I use these three things together and it makes it really powerful. That's where then you'll always add that next layer. And indeed, to the point of, hey, I think there's going to be a place for people to build on top of that. I couldn't agree more. Like what we've done is we've built a core set of capabilities where we, take what we see in the world today and say the way that people use LLMs to attack these problems, it can solve some of the things, but we're not really acting like we're doing science. Stay tuned. We'll have some more demos showing what it looks like when you've got whole fleets of agents using tools over real time. Imagine 2 hours of agent compute with 10 different agents using 12 different tools in an asynchronous process, going and following that scientific loop. These are things we've done. So building that set of capabilities of managing and running and executing that scientific thinking, it's the first layer we've added. Do I think that we're done? No. And I don't think it's always us that's going to provide the solution. I think people are going to bring their own unique agents, and we want to be open to that, which is why we want to provide the platform that allows them to do that and deliver that value. Because in the end, it was the most exciting thing for me when we did that battery prototype. We got that back. It was when the folks at PNNL, who are experts in this space, says this thing is interesting, it's got some other future applications in these areas, I was like, this is a unique discovery. I was a guy who spent a number of years working on hardware. I'd go to CES every year, and I would see startups that all founded based on just one discovery like that. And I'm like, wow, like each of these unique discoveries and insights could basically launch a company. And I said, people talk about software factories, AI factories is the talk of the day. For me, like, this is a discovery factory, this platform. So like, we can help you make discoveries, and that's the platform that I want to deliver, to be able to enable people to get those, and then I want them to go off and do so much more with it. That's how I think of it.
Hi, this is Suman Devarsity from US Bank. This is great and very insightful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have two questions. Number one, is Microsoft doing anything in quantum encryption space? Like, are we gonna see anything in terms of like a quantum encryption sometime soon?
Do you want to talk about that, or?
I
can.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So it's really easy. People obviously, when you think quantum, people talk about cracking known encryption methods. And the short way I say it to a lot of folks here is like it's not like you're going to go buy a quantum computer to go break encryption. No, we know quantum computers will be able to use Shor's algorithm. They will be able to break the weak encryption standards that folks have today. Microsoft has been part of the cross-industry journey for a long time to come up with quantum-safe encryption methodology. So if you're a business, you're a developer today, the smart thing you should do is be ready. Like today is the time. When we say years, not decades, you've got time today to go change to quantum safe cryptography. And there are more links when you go to that quantum safe page. That's part of the strategy we have for businesses out there. What you want to do now is get ready. If you've got any data that has got a security lifetime of, more than a couple of years, it's time to go update your standards. And it's an easy fix then. The arrival of these scale quantum machines is a non-event from that cryptography point of view.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
And my second question is around, the Microsoft Discovery platform. Is it intelligent enough to help me, whatever the thing that I'm working on, my next discovery or invention, to know whether it is patent eligible?
Patent eligible? Yeah, we've seen folks actually build specific agents for that. And when I think of the pharmaceutical space, a number of folks are already working on that. That is where I say the extensibility of your own models and tools. A lot of these large companies already have. They've been obviously looking to the AI, coming revolution here for a while. And we've seen them, they come to us and say, hey, when I adopt this platform, can I bring my regulatory analysis tool in? We're saying, absolutely. What we can do is help you develop the agent, and we've got very simple instructions that will say, here's how you develop a declarative agent for these type of things that will bring that capability in. And again, over time, when you haven't built one yourself, I expect there will be an ecosystem of, you'll be able to see everybody else's approaches there. That's how we think about doing that.
Hi, thank you. This was a very helpful talk. I do have a question around for the funnel where you were, narrowing down from hundreds of thousands of molecules to a few hundred or whatever. What was the process for rationalizing around, I guess, the fear of missing out from the probabilistic angle of how the AI is choosing, and then even if it brings it down to a few hundred, what if there are a few molecules which were out there which were really the
absolutely.
The
You're trading
key.
off your false positives and false negatives. As the product guy, I love the simplification to show expansion with AI, contraction with traditional methods, mapping to a real scientific process. But again, the scientist is always in the loop, and you talk to people like Alexis and say, hey, when you've got a real problem, you write the plan, and again, the agent might not give you a plan that you agree with. You might think differently of how restrictive do I want to be and what I'm bringing in, and you can iterate that plan and adapt it to the way you want to operate. It's like how you think about science. I don't know if you have anything else you'd add there.
No, yeah, that's it. We'll look at the pool, and then we can modify our filters based off of the application type. So we know kind of the range that we want, and if we have a ton of candidates that meet that range, we'll tighten it up a little bit. Because if we can narrow in on a specific, boiling point, for instance, then we'll do that for sure. So there's always this kind of intuition, and of course it's research, so you understand the properties you need to meet and everything to narrow this pool down. Because there are so many candidates that come out of these generative models.
Hello, great session. Thank you very much for sharing all these details. I would like to double click on the quantum security question that was asked previously. So, one of the problems, of course, is that future quantum computers pose threat for data that we transmit today, because somebody could store this data and then use future quantum computers to decrypt it retrospectively and get to the secrets that we might be transmitting today, harvest now, decrypt later attacks. There are some papers out there suggesting algorithms that are even more efficient than Shor's, so we might need just low thousands, if not high hundreds of logical qubits to break elliptic curve cryptography or RSA. Are you planning to introduce any kind of safeguards when it comes to HPC quantum offering so that people won't be able to use that for nefarious purposes? Or do you expect this level of quantum chips that would be available for hire through Azure are still a number of years away, so that this won't be an issue? We'll all migrate to module lattices-based cryptography by then.
Yeah, no, all good questions. And I'll start off by saying that, Alexis and I, probably being on the chemistry front, we're not the best people to address that. And there's a lot of material online. Again, I believe if you follow that Quantum Safe link, if not, I know it's on the Greater Quantum page. But the easy punchline for this is that within Microsoft, we think a lot about responsible computing. Every time when I put up one of these services that we're building and delivering, we're thinking about that. If it's chemistry, you're talking dual use. You're thinking of all of these possible outcomes. We're not going to put something out there that doesn't have the right safeguards, but should be able to find more details from the actual expert folks there who are working on that side of the problem. And I think we're about to end on the live stream, but for the folks in the room, I'll continue to answer questions, so don't worry about it. If you hear the music, don't worry.
No problem, thank you. I really enjoyed your section of the keynote as well. I think probably everyone here did. My question is around the topological process state that you guys are leveraging versus what's emerging now, which is the photonic graphene state processors that are allowing you to do qubit correction across like a limited space. So you only need 4 qubits to create a logical qubit. Have you guys looked into that advancement for creating your logical qubit clusters?
Yeah. We're looking at all different possibilities, and we work with partners as well to kind of advance this and see what's possible and how we can maximize, the technology that exists and how we can build on this. So we are working very closely with partners to do this.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming out today.